Welcome to Window to Faith.
Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're exploring what it really means to live a fulfilling Christian life.
Okay.
We're focusing on this YouTube video from John Bevere called Rewards in Heaven Aren't All the Same.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
And it's got some interesting ideas about, how our choices have consequences, both here and in the afterlife.
Right, yeah. Like how the video uses those stories from the Bible, Noah and Lot, to kind of show the difference between just being spared by God versus actually being rescued.
Yeah, that distinction between spared and rescued really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Like Noah, he preached righteousness, he was spared through the flood.
Right.
But Lot, he was almost like worn down by all the wickedness around him.
Yeah.
He was just rescued from Sodom.
It makes you think.
It does. It makes you wonder, are we just trying to scrape by in our faith? Or are we like actively trying to get closer to God?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's kind of like what the video says about the world having this like drawing effect. He gradually moved closer and closer to Sodom. He got drawn in by everything it offered. It's such a powerful image of how we can get pulled away from what we believe in, even if it happens slowly over time.
This idea of being drawn in really resonates with me. It's so easy to just get caught up in everyday life and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How do you see this play out in the lives of Christians today? What are like the modern day Sodoms that are pulling people in?
That's a tough one. I think it's a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah.
But that pull is definitely all around us. It could be, that pressure to be successful by the world standards, always wanting more stuff, or even just that feeling like you have to fit in with culture, even when it goes against what you believe.
The video uses this really interesting metaphor from 1 Corinthians 3.
Okay.
Talking about building on the foundation of Jesus. It says, if we build with wood, hay, and straw, which represent worldly things, it'll all just burn away.
Yeah.
But if we build with gold, silver, precious stones, things that represent eternal values, that's what'll last.
I like that.
The video even uses this image of trophies.
Oh, yeah.
Just gathering dust to make the point.
Yeah. I love that metaphor because it creates this visual in your mind. Trophies represent things we work for, achievements.
Yeah.
But in the end, they're just things.
Yeah.
They get old, they break, they lose their meaning. It really makes you ask, what am I building my life on? Am I chasing after things that don't really matter?
Right.
Or am I investing in things that have eternal value, like relationships, character, actions that have real significance?
So it's not just about avoiding bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's about actively pursuing a life that lines up with what God wants for us.
Yeah.
And the video reminds us that kind of life, it doesn't just have future rewards.
Right.
It actually has benefits right here, right now.
Totally. It talks about 1 Timothy 4:8, where it says that godliness has promise for both this life and the life to come. That really got me thinking, have you ever noticed how living a godly life actually pays off in real ways? Right now.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It leads us into one of the more difficult parts of living a godly life, dealing with relationships, especially with people who maybe don't share our faith.
Right.
The video talks about this concept of being unequally yoked and how to navigate those situations.
Yeah, that part really stood out to me. The story of Smith Wigglesworth and his wife, she stayed strong in her faith.
Yeah.
And through her actions, her love, he eventually came to know God too.
Wow.
It reminds us that we're not meant to cut ourselves off from the world,
Yeah.
but to be a light in it, especially in those tough relationships.
It's a good reminder that what we do can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
And that a strong faith can really influence the people around us.
Definitely.
But that doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. The video talks about some tough stuff too. Like resisting those temptations and honoring authority even when it's messed up.
Yeah.
These are things that we're seeing everywhere in our culture today.
What I think is important is how the video talks about these complex issues.
Yeah.
It's not just about blindly obeying or accepting things that are wrong.
Right.
It's about being able to tell the difference between honoring the position of authority and obeying what somebody in authority tells you to do.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
It even uses the example of the apostles. They refused to stop preaching.
Right.
Even when the authorities told them to, because it went against God's word.
Exactly.
So it's not about just blindly following.
Yeah.
It's about understanding where true authority comes from and knowing when to stand up for what you believe.
It's about wisdom and making good judgments. And in the end, the video says that how we handle those challenges shows our true character.
Mm-hmm.
Do we respond by criticizing and putting people down? Or do we choose to pray and show grace? It makes us think about how we react to disagreements with leaders.
Right.
Whether it's a president, a parent, even a boss. What do you think? How does this whole idea of honoring versus obeying play out in our lives every day?
That's a good question to think about. It's easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when we see things we don't agree with.
Right.
But the video reminds us that there's a better way to respond. It challenges us to react with grace and love.
Yeah.
Even when things are tough.
And that takes us back to the idea of legacy, which I think we're going to explore more as we go deeper into this video. It really makes you think, what kind of impact are our actions having, not just now, but in the future? Are we building a legacy of faith that will inspire others?
This is already so thought-provoking. We've just scratched the surface of this video.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing so many connections to my own life.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think as we keep going, we're going to find even more insights about how to live a life that truly honors God.
Yeah.
So let's jump in.
Okay.
This whole idea of legacy, it keeps coming up in the video.
Yeah.
And it's not just about honoring authority right now. It's about how our choices affect things in the long run.
It's like what we were talking about earlier with Lot. You know, his choice to keep moving closer to Sodom. It didn't just affect him. It had consequences for his family.
Right.
And like the video says, it even led to generations of spiritual darkness.
That's a heavy thought. It's a reminder that we're not just responsible for ourselves.
Yeah.
We also influence other people. Our choices, they can have ripple effects that go way beyond our own lives.
Makes you really think about every decision you make, doesn't it?
It does.
And it brings us back to that main point that rewards in heaven aren't all the same.
Right. And the video is not saying we have to earn our way into heaven or anything like that.
Right.
It's more about living a life that shows we're thankful for God's grace and that we want to honor him. It's about putting our energy into things that have eternal value instead of chasing after temporary pleasure.
It's like choosing to build a house with strong materials that will last,
Yeah.
instead of just slapping something together that will fall apart right away.
Yeah.
The video really emphasizes that we have a choice in how we build our lives.
And it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing process. It's not about being perfect. It's about always seeking God, learning from when we mess up, and getting a deeper understanding of what he wants.
It's like we're on this journey of faith, and sometimes the path is easy, and sometimes it's really hard. But the video reminds us that we're not alone on this journey.
Definitely not. We have God to guide us, his grace, and the support of other believers to help us along the way.
That sense of community is so important. One of the things I really like about this video is that it doesn't just give us a bunch of rules.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of a life that's full of purpose, meaning, and joy. A life where our choices really matter.
It's inspiring, isn't it, to think that even when we face challenges and setbacks, we can still live a life that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but for eternity.
It really is. And the video highlights how this all comes back to personal responsibility. It's not about pointing fingers or coming up with excuses.
Right.
It's about owning our actions and understanding that our choices has consequences. It's about realizing that what we do doesn't just affect us. It can impact other people's lives, even generations down the line.
Exactly. And that's why this idea of legacy is so important. The video really makes us ask ourselves, what kind of legacy are we building? Are we living in a way that points others to God? Are we inspiring hope and faith in the people around us?
Those are big questions.
They are.
It's easy to get caught up in the everyday stuff and lose sight of the big picture.
Yeah.
But this video helps us to stop and think, what am I building with my life? What will I leave behind?
And it's not just about material things, It's about the impact we have on other people's hearts and minds. Are we leaving a legacy of love, kindness, and faithfulness? Are we investing in things that will matter forever?
It's a powerful challenge.
Yeah.
And it makes you really think about your priorities.
It does.
Are we spending our time and energy on things that truly matter? Are we using our gifts and talents to serve God and other people?
It's easy to get caught up in chasing worldly success or temporary pleasure.
Yeah.
But the video reminds us that there's a better way, a way that leads to true fulfillment and lasting joy, a way that honors God and makes a difference in the world.
It's a reminder that we're not just living for this moment, we're living for eternity. And that's an amazing thing to be a part of.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this video, with its focus on choices, consequences, and legacy, gives us a guide for how to live a life that counts not just today, but forever.
It's inspiring and motivating.
Yeah.
It makes you want to take a look at your own life, make changes where you need to, and really embrace this adventure of faith, knowing that we're not alone in it.
Exactly. We have this incredible privilege to be part of something bigger than ourselves, something that will last forever. And that's a powerful truth to hold on to.
We've had such a great conversation about choices and how they affect other people and the legacy we're building. But I'm wondering, how do we actually put all of this into practice in our everyday lives?
Well, the video talks about how important it is to seek God's guidance. It's not about following rules blindly, but about having a relationship with God where we're always trying to figure out his will and really listening to his voice.
The video talks about how we should seek God in everything we do, not just when we're praying.
Yeah.
It's like we're having this ongoing conversation with him, asking for his direction and being open to where he leads us, even when it's outside our comfort zone.
Yeah, that openness is so important. God sometimes calls us to do things that seem really hard, even impossible.
Right.
But it's often when we let go and obey him that we see his biggest blessings. The video reminds us that when we step out in faith, amazing things can happen and we can get rewards we never expected.
The video also talks about how serving others is a practical way to live out our faith.
Yeah.
Not because we have to or feel obligated, but because we truly love God and love people. It's about recognizing the needs around us and responding with compassion and generosity.
And it doesn't always have to be some big grand gesture. Sometimes it's the little things that mean the most.
Yeah.
A kind word, lending a hand, really listening to someone. It's about being like Jesus in our homes, our jobs, and our communities.
Those small acts of kindness can have such a big impact.
They really can.
It's like shining a light in a world that can feel pretty dark sometimes.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to legacy. The video challenges us to think about what kind of legacy we're leaving behind, not just for ourselves, but for future generations.
It's about living in a way that makes others want to know God, to live lives with meaning and purpose. It's about leaving a mark on the world that shows God's love, grace, and truth.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I think the big question we're left with is this. What kind of legacy am I building? What will my life say about the God I serve?
That's a powerful question for all of us to think about. It's a question that can shape our choices, help us prioritize what's important, and inspire us to live lives that truly matter, lives that make a difference for eternity.
Thanks for being a part of this deep dive. We hope it's encouraged you on your own faith journey and inspired you to live a life that shows God's love and grace.
And remember, you're not on this path alone. We're all in this together, trying to build a legacy that will last forever.